Hey there, how's it going? davidinark here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you a very cool little tool that allows you to easily copy an asset from one map and bring it into another map so that you can take objects and move them around, use things from one map on another map, create your own custom levels. Very, very cool stuff. That's up next. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to the GitHub link down in the description below, and that's going to take you to the BeamNG level cleanup file from Alex Kleinwalker. Now, I apologize if I say that wrong, but you're going to come to this page, and if you've never messed around with GitHub, don't worry about it. I'll guide you through that. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to notice that over on the right-hand side, there is going to be a section called Releases. And as I'm recording this, the version that we're downloading is beta release 0.9.5. Your version may be different, depends on when you grab this, but what we're going to do is click on the text for beta, and that is going to take us to the download page. Now you're going to see all kinds of information on here, but what we're interested in is under assets, you've got the BeamNG level cleanup.zip file. So you want to save that to your computer, and then you want to extract that. All right, after you unzip the files, one of the things you're going to want to do is create a working directory where you'll store files while the system is moving stuff around. So I went into my documents folder and I just created a folder called BeamNG_work, and this is where I'm going to put the different zip files that I'll be working with. The next thing that you want to do is you want to go to wherever your BeamNG files are stored, and you want to grab the zip file for the map that you want to pull the assets from. So for example, if I jump in here into my Steam apps and I go to BeamNG Drive, content, levels. So I'm going to steal the shed from the automation test track and I'm going to put it into East Coast USA. So I want to copy the automation test track, and we're going to put that into the documents BeamNG work folder. All right, so I'm just copying that zip file and I'm putting it over into my working directory. And you want to do this because you do not want to mess up any of the base levels that are in the game. Plus, if BeamNG releases an update and replaces some of those default levels, then you don't want to lose the work that you've been doing. So I put in the automation test track for my source, right? Now I need to go back to the BeamNG folder, the levels, because I also want to get East Coast USA because that's where I'm going to be working. So I'm going to copy that and go back to my documents and BeamNG work, and I'm going to paste that in there. So I now have the place that I want to get the assets out of, that is the automation test track, and I have the place where I want to put the assets into, which is going to be East Coast USA. All right. Now, once I've done that, I can go back to the folder where my level cleanup resides. And so if I scroll down here, eventually I'll get to that folder. So BeamNG level cleanup. Then I'm going to double click the BeamNG level cleanup file. Now, if your computer does not show extensions at the end, just look for the type application. You're going to double click that. When you first start it, there will be an error message that pops up or a warning message that pops up. Just click more info and then run anyway, and then the program will run. And that brings you into BeamNG tools for map builders. And what's really cool about this is there's actually multiple tools in this one program. There's a map shrinker, there's a rename map, and a copy assets. Now, the only thing that we're going to be working with is copy assets and rename map. I'm not going to be working with the map shrinker. Maybe we'll do that in a future video. But we're going to go down to copy assets. Now, the first thing that you should notice at the top is that it says where your BeamNG install directory is. It should pick that up automatically. If it does not, if that's not where your BeamNG Drive executable is located, you know, the main folder, then you can click on this drop down and you can choose the folder where BeamNG resides. The next thing we want to do is we have to pick the source level. And remember, the source is where it's got the asset that we want to take out. So if you click on select the zip source, and then you can choose to select a file. Now, you can choose from a vanilla level. The problem is that if you do that, it's going to unzip all of that into your BeamNG main file folder, and frankly, it's just going to gunk it up. So your best bet is to go up here to select file, and in this case, I'm going to go to my documents, and in my documents, I have my BeamNG work, and I'm going to choose automation test track. Now, remember that the source is where we are copying from. Notice that you got some dialog boxes down here in the corner. So blue and green are good. Sometimes you're going to see some red. For the most part, as long as you're following these steps, you don't have to worry about the red errors. But one of the things that you want to know is as it's unzipping, and especially when it's rezipping files, then it's packing them back up, it could take a while and you don't get any kind of message at all. So you just kind of have to wait for the system to tell you what it's doing. So we've got the source. We want to copy from automation. Where do we want to copy it to? Again, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to select East Coast USA from my work directory. All right. Now you'll notice that it is also going to unzip this. It's reading in all of the assets. And now it has read the assets from automation and now shows these down below. And you can pull in just about any of the assets that you want to. I mean, there are dirt roads, there's drainage, there's fallen leaves, there's all kinds of stuff. If there's something in particular that you're looking for, though, you can do search. So in our case, on the automation test track, what we're looking for is a thing called the shed. Now, there are two different sheds in the automation test track. One, it has the doors closed, and the other shed has the doors open. And of course, we want the ones that are open so that we can park our car in there, right? So I'm going to check the little box over to the left-hand side. And at that point, I can tell it to copy those assets. Do you really want to copy these assets? It cannot be undone. Yes, fine. I'm going to copy. So in this case, I picked a quick little asset. If I had picked a bunch of assets, or if I wanted to select all of the assets that are in this map, for example, if I wanted to copy everything that was in the automation test track over to East Coast USA, I could simply just click all and it would grab everything and move it over. I would use that with caution. I really would. All right. Now, we have imported at this point the shed from automation into East Coast USA. Now, before you build the zip file, which that's kind of the final step, we actually need to take another step, and that is to come over here to rename the map. And the reason why that you want to do this is because if you don't rename it, then basically what you're doing is replacing the in-game East Coast map with yours with the same name. By giving this a new name, so here's your new name included in file paths. This is the file name that's going to be used for your version of the map. And this cannot have spaces. Okay, so I'm just going to call this East Coast, and you'll notice I'm using underscores where we would have spaces. So East Coast, East_Coast_, davidinark. All right. Then the next line is your display title, and this is the title. This is how it shows up in the map picker. So you can call this whatever you want to. So I'm just going to call this davidinark East Coast, USA. All right. Once you've typed in, so you're not going to mess with anything of the current name because that is the current name of the file you've got. Put in a new file name, no spaces, and then put in a description with spaces and click rename the level. So are you sure you want to rename the level? Yes, rename the level. All right, so everything is renamed, and at this point, once the boxes fade, now I can build my zip file. Now this is going to take a while, and you'll notice here it says I'm zipping the deployment file, please be patient, compressing the file. It still shows, zipping the deployment file. This will take a while, especially depending on what assets you're bringing in and what map you're using as your modified map. So for example, if I had just grabbed the shed and I put it into the simple grid map, then this would actually take almost no time at all because it was one little thing. But in this case, I'm taking the shed, which is a little thing, from the automation map, but I'm putting it into the full-blown East Coast USA map. So now you see here we get the blue box that says, hey, the deployment file was created here. And you notice it has a funky name. So at this point, I can close the tools. And now, if I go to my documents where I've got my BeamNG work, you'll notice that I've got East Coast, davidinark, deploy, blah, blah, blah. That is your custom map right there. So what you want to do is you want to copy that map. And here, you're going to put it into your BeamNG mods folder. You have just created a mod, okay? So you're going to go to your BeamNG Drive mods folder. Usually it's whatever your name is, app data, local, BeamNG Drive, and then the current version, which happens to be 0.29 for as I'm recording this. Then I go into mods, and here are my mods. Actually, I've got one there. We'll just get rid of that. And I want to paste in my modded version of East Coast USA. Now, the next thing that you're ready for is to launch BeamNG and insert your newly acquired asset onto the map. All right, once you get into BeamNG, you're going to go to Free Roam, and in there, you should see your map based on the name that you called it. So remember, I called mine davidinark East Coast USA. Remember, this was the description that I gave it. So if I click on there, you'll notice everything looks exactly the same because I didn't change anything else. All I did was add in the garage. So I'm going to put the garage at the farmhouse. So let's go to the farmhouse and spawn in there. All right, so I am spawned in at the farmhouse, and I think we will put the garage, for now, we'll just kind of put it right here. Sure, why not? Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you're going to hit F11 to go into the world editor. When the world editor comes up, you may or may not have the asset browser down in the lower right hand corner or anywhere on your screen at all. So I'm going to go ahead and close it, just so this is how most people probably have their screens. What you can do is go up to Window, go to Asset Browser, and then that brings up the asset browser. When the asset browser is in place, there are all kinds of different ways that you can find what you're looking for. For me, though, it's just easier if I go to All up here, and then next to the magnifying glass, I can click and I can type, and I'm looking for the shed. So as you can see, I have the S corrugated DAE, and that's what we're going to drag onto the map. So we have this, it's got the little box next to it, and you're just going to drag that into the game. Don't worry about your screen blanking out or any of that kind of stuff. There you go. And now we have the shed in the game. That is so cool. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we want to place it correctly, right? So I'm going to go up to the tools up here. We're going to rotate, and I'm going to flip this bad boy around, and then I'm going to use the translate key. And with translate, you have the red and green X and Y, but you also notice that there's a flat place in between them. So I can actually do X and Y at the same time, so we can kind of move this up here. All right, now I'm going to use WASD, so I'm going to use A to come over here, and then I'm going to hold my right mouse button down and move my mouse so that I can position myself, because I want to go back to the rotate key, or tool rather, and I'm going to use the red, yellow, and green lines to, I'm going to hold my mouse button down here and I'm going to rotate that a little bit. Oops. That looks pretty level. Now obviously it's not on the ground, so I need to move this down a little. And it's not perfect, but for our purposes, it'll work just fine. Now you'll notice that because of where we put it, there is some grass and some ground poking through. So we can go into the editor here and we can get rid of that stuff. So what I'm doing here is I went to terrain tools up at the top. I clicked on it so that it's orange. Came down here to the terrain painter, and then my terrain painter box popped up. You can see this here. And in order to get rid of grass, you have to basically paint something else on top of it. So if I just pick, let's say, dirt, because why not? I can change the size of this circle, but that 5 should be good. So if I click, then you'll notice that the grass is mostly disappearing. Alright, so we have some issues, right? One is, that appears to be this bush out here. I want to be careful. I'll be honest. I hate to get rid of that. I'm just going to leave that there because I don't care that much. But I could also do, like, this ground is a little weird right here. So if I want to, I could actually go over here to lower the height. And you'll notice that as soon as I click, then that's been lowered. Now the downside to this is outside of the shed, that is also that has also been lowered. So you may want to, oops, I hit the wrong one. You may want to go back here and raise the height a little. All right, let's see what that looks like inside. That's not bad. That'll work. And I know that tree is sticking out. I just don't feel like messing with the tree. It is what it is. So I've got my shed, the garage, if you will, posted up here in the yard of the farmhouse. And really, that's it. That's all you got to do. But for the sake of argument, let's see. My car is definitely not lined up here. So the question is, can Dave get in the garage without tearing off his side mirror? Ooh, he did. Oh, look at there. Okay. There we go. My car is in the garage. Look at that. Likewise, I can drive out. There you go. So one of the other things that you want to do is you would want to go back into the world editor, and you want to make sure that you save the level. That way, when you reload the level, your garage or whatever assets you brought in will still be in the game. And it is, I want to say it's that simple. I will tell you that it is not quite always that simple. As a matter of fact, here is some footage of me trying to put the diner into East Coast USA from the West Coast USA map, you know, the little spaceship diner. What I didn't realize was that the diner asset was not just the diner, but also that entire row of buildings. So as you're looking at assets, you want to be careful and get a feel for what things are exactly, because there's more than meets the eye, often the case. But anyhow, there you go. I'll have a link to the original video and place where I first learned about this. I will also have a link to the tool itself down in the description. You can check that out. Got any other questions, problems, suggestions, horror stories? Feel free to leave those down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm davidinark. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.